Welcome to Life Stories, where sometimes the most powerful form of revenge is silence, and the most devastating betrayal comes from across your own dinner table. What would you do if you discovered your husband's mistress sitting in your living room, laughing, toasting, wearing the necklace you picked out for her birthday, without ever realizing you knew everything? Tonight's story isn't just about infidelity. It's about a woman who turned heartbreak into strategy, grief into evidence, and a quiet dinner party into the most unforgettable reckoning her community had ever seen. But what she uncovered along the way wasn't what she expected, and neither was the choice she had to make in the moment that mattered most. This is a story about power, pain, and the moment you realize justice doesn't always look like revenge. Let's step inside. She sat across from me at my own dining table, her red lips curved into the kind of practiced smile women like her wore like war paint. Lauren Maddox, flawless in a black silk dress that hugged her ambition, reached out and lightly touched the hand-painted ceramic centerpiece I had arranged myself that morning. "It's exquisite," she purred, like she hadn't just desecrated the sanctity of my home with her presence. What she didn't know, what made my pulse drum steadily beneath my skin, was that in exactly 38 minutes, her own husband would walk through my front door with 24 roses and a bottle of Dom Perignon, expecting to surprise her, and instead, he'd watch her world fracture in slow motion. But Lauren wasn't the only liar in the room. My name is Brooke Carter. I am a senior forensic accountant at Carter & Cross LLP in Manhattan. I specialize in financial deception, white-collar fraud, asset concealment, shell corporations hiding stolen wealth, and I'm very good at it. So good, in fact, that federal prosecutors and billion-dollar firms trust me with their ugliest secrets. My work demands precision, skepticism, and emotional detachment. Ironically, it was that detachment that allowed me to miss the most obvious crime of all, the erosion of my own marriage. My husband, Dr. Ryan Carter, is or was a highly respected orthopedic surgeon in the city, the kind with a column in Men's Health and a steady stream of NFL clients. We were the sort of couple people envied at charity galas and referred to as powerful in glossy features. A townhome off Hudson Grove, dinners in Soho, matching calendars full of board meetings and conference invitations. Our lives had edges and symmetry, until they didn't. The cracks began subtly, the way real betrayal always does. Late surgeries, last-minute travel, hotel invoices that didn't match itineraries. I dismissed the signs, told myself it was burnout, that love meant trust, not surveillance, that I would know, would feel, if something were wrong, I was wrong. 4 months ago, I reached into the pocket of Ryan's blazer to check for dry cleaning tags. What I found instead was a folded note in smooth cream stationery, sealed with the faint scent of jasmine and entitlement. The handwriting was elegant, the kind taught in boarding schools and polished by cocktail parties. The message was simple. Last weekend was everything. I keep seeing the way you looked at me in the morning light, counting down the days until we can stop pretending. All my love, always. L. L. Lauren. Lauren Maddox was no stranger. She wasn't some faceless fling tucked into another area code. She was in our circle, a physical therapist specializing in athlete recovery, the kind of woman who blended performance science with designer heels. I had seen her laugh at my dinner table, had toasted her birthday with the wine I hand-selected, and apparently, she had been building a future with my husband while asking for my risotto recipe. My hands didn't shake when I photographed the note and replaced it precisely where I found it. They didn't shake when I started a spreadsheet labeled Maddox Timeline, or when I quietly installed a second cloud account only I could access. No, I saved the shaking for the night I realized just how deep the betrayal ran. This wasn't a mistake. This was a system, a collaboration, a multi-tiered deception involving separate phone lines, prepaid credit cards, and secret weekend getaways. I mapped it all, where he said he was, where he actually went, when her calendar mysteriously cleared, when our credit cards showed coinciding activity in places neither of them should have been. Surveillance filled the gaps. Receipts confirmed the rest. The affair wasn't new. It had lasted 14 months. 14 months of layered lies and surgical precision. But here's the thing no one tells you. When you uncover the truth, the pain is not the worst part. It's the silence. The deep, bone-level silence of realizing you've built your entire life on a fiction so elaborate, it rivals the very frauds you put people in prison for. The dinner party idea came not from vengeance, but from strategy. If they built their affair in the dark, I would destroy it in the light. I invited Ryan, I invited Lauren, I invited her husband, Dr. Mason Maddox, Harvard-educated, politically connected, and wildly in love with his wife. The party was disguised as a celebration for a local medical ethics symposium I was hosting. A cover I constructed so carefully, even the most skeptical attendees wouldn't question it. Now Lauren sat here, sipping vintage Chardonnay, her eyes scanning the room for Ryan like a teenager at prom. My voice remained polite, my laughter well-placed, but under the table my fingertips pressed against my thigh, grounding me. Mason would arrive any minute. The final course was just beginning, and the truth, my truth, was simmering beneath the surface like a dish served best when it's cold, calculated, and undeniably public. Have you ever watched someone smile, knowing they were seconds away from their world falling apart? Would you press the truth to their lips or let them keep sipping the lie? What happened next made every carefully crafted plan I'd laid tremble. Because one person at that table wasn't who I thought they were, and they had a secret of their own. The room glowed with soft candlelight and the low hum of silverware against porcelain, but my skin was electric with anticipation. Every movement, every glance across the table felt like part of a silent ballet only I could hear the score to. Mason Maddox arrived exactly as planned. Sharp suit, polished watch, a man built from integrity and quiet confidence. He greeted Lauren with the kind of affection that would have shattered me months ago. Now it only made the betrayal ache deeper. He kissed her cheek, smiled, placed a hand on the small of her back, and she smiled back like a woman who'd never known guilt. Ryan hadn't arrived yet. The wine was flowing, small talk blooming between bites of truffle risotto and filet mignon, and I played the hostess with perfect composure. Inside, though, my thoughts were slicing through every moment of my marriage with the kind of cold scrutiny I reserved for embezzlement cases. The lie wasn't just between Ryan and Lauren. It was also inside me, the part of me that once believed I was immune to being blindsided, the lie that said if you were brilliant and devoted, you'd be safe, untouchable, chosen. Lauren caught me looking once. She held my gaze half a second too long, as if trying to assess what I knew. I smiled, slowly, and said something about the Pinot being delicate. She laughed too loudly. Mason touched her wrist, gently, grounding her. That small gesture nearly made me flinch. I wasn't ready for what he would become in this story. The moment cracked when Ryan finally stepped into the room. He looked disoriented. Like he hadn't expected the room to be so full. Like maybe he thought I'd be waiting in some quiet corner with a single glass of wine and an easy excuse to disappear early. But I was center stage. My eyes met his across the table, and I saw it. The flinch, the microsecond of panic beneath his polished charm. He greeted a few colleagues. He didn't look at Lauren. She didn't look at him. It was rehearsed. A choreography of guilt. The first toast came from the head of the ethics panel. It was about boundaries, professional integrity. The irony wasn't lost on anyone who knew what I was about to reveal. But that moment, the pause between courses, was interrupted not by me, but by Mason. He cleared his throat gently and stood, glass in hand. "I just want to say," he began, "how proud I am of Lauren. These past few months, she's been balancing a full caseload, mentoring 2 new hires, and still showing up for our marriage like it's year 1. You're a wonder," he smiled at her, "and I love you." Something inside me faltered. Not from doubt. No, the evidence was airtight, but from something more dangerous. Empathy. Lauren looked like she wanted the floor to collapse under her. She couldn't even force a smile this time. Her hand clenched the stem of her wine glass, knuckles whitening. And Ryan? Ryan looked like a man standing inside a collapsing building, realizing too late that the foundations had been faulty for years. I wanted to relish it. I should have, but my heart twisted instead, because I saw it. Not just the betrayal, I saw the pain beneath their performance, and for a terrifying moment, I didn't know if what I was about to do would bring justice or just more destruction. What no one at that table knew, not Ryan, not Lauren, not even Mason, was that I had found something 2 days ago, something I hadn't yet processed, something that didn't fit neatly into the narrative of clean betrayal and calculated revenge. A second key card. Different hotel, different name, different initials, a woman named Elise. And it wasn't Lauren's. At first, I thought Ryan had gone deeper, another affair, another woman. But then I traced the receipts, the hotel, the timing, the name. It wasn't an affair. It was a child, a teenage girl, Elise Carter, 15 years old, the result of a one-night stand during our first separation 7 years ago, the one Ryan had sworn was lonely but uneventful. The girl was his daughter, and he had been seeing her, supporting her quietly, trying to build some version of a hidden family around the disaster of a mistake he never told me about. And Lauren, she didn't know either. That letter she wrote, the one I had clutched like a confession, mentioned future dreams, but never a child. Suddenly, the foundation beneath my plan shifted. This wasn't just adultery. It was a web of fear, denial, and consequences none of us had been prepared for. Ryan hadn't just betrayed me. He had betrayed everyone, including the daughter he never had the courage to introduce to the life he built on lies. I didn't move. Not yet. The evidence was still in my purse, the photos, the messages, the DNA report. My hand hovered over the envelope, but something in my chest whispered, "Wait," because maybe the real question wasn't how to expose them. Maybe it was who really needed to be seen. If you uncovered a deeper secret beneath the betrayal, one that rewrote the entire story, would you still follow through with your revenge? And what happens when justice no longer feels like enough? The next course was being served, and I was about to decide whether I would burn everything down or expose the one truth no one at that table was ready for. I didn't stand. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't pull the envelope from my bag and lay it on the table like a judge handing down a sentence. I simply sat there, still as water, and watched the people who had unknowingly shaped the ruins of my life eat roasted duck and sip fine wine beneath chandeliers they'd helped me choose 2 years ago for our 10th anniversary gala. But something had shifted. Something inside me, sharp and clear, had settled. They didn't know. Not Ryan. Not Lauren. Not even Mason. They didn't know what I knew now, and they couldn't, because the truth I'd uncovered wasn't only theirs to carry, it was mine too. And that truth came in the form of a 15-year-old girl named Elise, who looked enough like Ryan that my stomach had turned when I saw her photo. The same hazel eyes, the same crooked left incisor, the same exact birthmark below the collarbone that I used to kiss in bed at midnight when we were still in love and still whole. I had spent 4 months preparing for this dinner, for this unveiling. This perfect storm of humiliation and justice dressed in designer gowns and polished glassware. But the storm was now mine alone to hold. Because if I dropped that envelope, if I exposed Lauren and Ryan in front of their spouses, peers, and board members like I'd planned, I'd also ignite something else, something that couldn't be undone. And in that wreckage, a girl who didn't ask for any of this would become a casualty. My fingers slowly slipped from the edge of the envelope inside my purse. Ryan's eyes flicked toward me, just once, nervous, searching. I held his gaze. I needed him to feel it, not rage, not vengeance, but the weight of everything he had built and broken. And in that brief exchange between two people who once promised to grow old together, I saw it land. He knew, not what I knew, not exactly, but he knew the game was up, that I had peeled back the curtain, that I had followed every thread he thought he buried. Lauren shifted in her seat, her hand brushing Mason's arm. He smiled at her gently, the way men do when they still believe. She didn't deserve his grace. But then again, neither did I deserve the lie I had lived for over a decade. Betrayal has a strange way of redistributing pain unevenly. Some bleed, others drown silently, and some, like me, choose not to let it define the end of their story. Dessert was served. Pistachio creme brulee with blackberries. I didn't taste a bite. I waited until the table had returned to its rhythm, wine refilled, conversation humming, before I rose. Thank you all for being here tonight, I said, voice steady, heels silent on the wood floor. Your presence means more than you know. I didn't look at Ryan or Lauren or Mason. I looked out into the room and let the light hit my face. Let it remind me I was still here, still whole in the places that mattered, still capable of choosing how this would end. After dinner, I left quietly. No grand scene, no dropped bombshell, no envelope. Instead, I walked into the chilled night air of the Hamptons and called a number I hadn't saved under any name. A woman answered, her voice soft, guarded. Elise's mother. We should meet, I said, and my voice cracked on the word we, because I wasn't sure who I meant anymore, me and her, or me and the girl. I think there's something we should talk about. 3 weeks later, I sat across from a teenage girl who picked at her cocoa in a Brooklyn cafe and didn't smile when I said I used to love her father. But she listened. She listened when I told her she wasn't a mistake, that the people around her might be flawed, but that didn't make her origins any less real. She asked if I hated him. I said yes, and no, and that I didn't know anymore. She was quiet. Then she said, he told me you were the smartest person he ever met. That night, I went home to my new apartment overlooking the city I helped clean up financially, case by case. I poured myself a glass of wine and stared out at the Hudson, trying to understand what I had done, or chosen not to do. The part of me that had burned with revenge felt strangely quiet now. Not at peace, exactly, but full of truth, of gravity, of choice. Ryan lost everything, his medical license, our home, the life he thought he could compartmentalize. Lauren disappeared from the city within a month. Mason filed for divorce, and though he never contacted me, I knew he would be okay. You don't survive that kind of betrayal without learning how to rebuild yourself brick by quiet brick. And me, I didn't just rebuild. I rewired. I launched a private practice under Carter and Cross, specializing in matrimonial forensic investigations. Women from across the country began calling. Some were angry, some were scared, some just wanted to know they weren't crazy. I helped them all find answers. I didn't guarantee happy endings, I guaranteed clarity. Some nights, I still think about that envelope. It's in my safe. I never burned it, never tossed it into the river. It's there, a quiet reminder of the woman I could have become if I let betrayal decide who I would be. But I didn't, because I realized something. Revenge is loud, but integrity is patient. And sometimes the most powerful act of justice is restraint. What did this story make you feel? And would you have made the same choice as Brooke? If you loved this story, comment 100 below. Tell us which country you're watching from. And don't forget to share this story with someone who needs it. Thank you for watching Life Stories.